Good morning. I am Annette Smith. I am with Durham Parks and Recreation. This is Cheryl LeMay. She is the chair of the Durham Recreation Advisory Commission. Beverly Thompson, who is the director of public affairs for the city of Durham. Michelle Wells, who is the executive director of the North Carolina Recreation and Park Association. And Steve Schul, who is the city councilman for the city of Durham. And we are Team Durham. All right. Can we start the video, please? Just press play. Oh.
We're switching, hold on.
Unlock the playground. Unlock our playground.
Unlock our playground.
Unlock our playgrounds.
Okay, so our bold goal to increase Durham's goal of thriving, livable neighborhoods by increasing access to recreational facilities by 2018. Our big idea is by increasing community engagement by leveraging underutilized assets through the symbolic unlocking of playgrounds, school playgrounds to the public. Okay, our team, I changed my presentation since this one. Our team is made up of representatives, obviously, of City Council, City Manager's Office, City Parks and Recreation. We also had extensive representation by Durham Public School staff, which was very exciting. Public Health in the Durham County, the East Durham Children's Initiative, and Alliance Behavioral Health, as well as, again, our state recreation agency. This bold goal, big idea ties in with the strategic plans of both the city and the county, as well as policy initiatives of Durham Public Schools on making their space accessible and inviting to the communities that live around the schools. Durham Public Schools in Durham, in the city of Durham, do have a joint agreement for sharing facilities. These spaces are available to the public. But we found in our master planning data collection process that the residents of Durham do not believe that they can go on school property. So we need to symbolically unlock these playgrounds. And we need to also develop those connections that make the symbolic unlocking of these playgrounds safe for our school administrators and an investment worth making for our residents.
Doing such means that we need strategies and thoughts for how we make this happen. And again, she noted that part of our challenge is not that playgrounds are locked, but there is the perception that they are private properties and not available to young people. So we have a set of strategies that we think will get us to that point. First, to create engaged partnerships with all of the possible stakeholders. And we often think about public stakeholders, city government, parks and rec, communities and schools. But most importantly, we need to make a connection to the people who live in our communities. Secondly, we think we need to create a celebration-style work day or work sessions for the schools that are selected as pilots. This offers an opportunity for both families, community members, the school system, Parks and Rec, and all of our stakeholders to engage in physically improving and moving our playgrounds to public spaces that they all can own. Then we believe we need to find out how this is working. And we want to use systems similar to the QR codes as a way of defining whether people are using the playgrounds at our schools or not. And then finally, we need to market this in a variety of ways, using social media and mass media, but marketing the fact that the playgrounds at schools belong to both the school system and the families and community around it. So you shouldn't give technology to people with gray hair. Our pilots, yeah, I know. I just can't figure out. Yeah, we have more than, we have a large number of playgrounds at schools in our city, but we want to begin with pilots, and we want to think about those pilots as schools that are in locations that would be more inclined to be the play deserts in our community. But then we also want to make sure that there's readiness across the board, that the school's ready, that there's a principal and leadership that would be engaged, that the community is ready for a partnership that requires them to be engaged and have ownership. And then also that the playground itself is in a position that we can do work that will make it a successful project. And then as we think about a timeline, we realize that this is a bold goal and a big project for us. So we know that we began by engaging our stakeholders, connecting with them, having some feedback from the community and from the public entities in our community. But we see that as an early 2015 project. And then we proceed through the steps of identifying, celebrating, tracking, and obviously we have 30 different elementary school playgrounds. We would hope that as we move through our timeline, we'd have all 30 of those, and we envision that as years go by, we would improve the attitudes about not only elementary schools, but also the high schools and middle schools who also have play space. And finally, we want to, sorry, like I said, don't give technology to gray-headed people, unlike our playgrounds. And this is what we would propose as our project. And I guess as a question for you to begin to talk to us about is, we recognize that engagement is an important part of making this work. Mm-hmm. So are there strategies or ideas for how we can make sure that we engage all of the partners that we need to make this a successful project?
I think that's a great question to lead off the panel in terms of how you create community through play. So any first remarks from the panelists here?
I'm happy to go. I was actually going to answer a different question. I'll use the panelist prerogative to answer a different question. And that is actually, I wouldn't overthink it. Because, I mean, and this is the expert of being a 50-plus-year-old human. And it's like, I grew up being told I could never use the playground on weekends. Everybody grew up. So you not only have a kid problem, you have a parent problem. And I think if you literally did some exciting signage on all these places, people would figure it out pretty quickly. Like unlock this, playground unlocked with a picture or whatever. I actually think it would go a huge way. And then worry about the other stuff, because like before, whether it actually looks perfect or whatever it is, the fact that it's now available, people can creatively figure out what to do with it. So I would say, just don't overthink it. And I think this one more than the others is an awareness problem in my mind.
And before we go to Dr. Lee, is there anyone here who lives in a community or comes from a community where school facilities are open for resident use? Okay, so you guys might want to connect and share some best practices or what you've seen be successful in terms of shifting perception. Dr. Lee?
I agree with I think just, having some exciting signage, but I also want to just comment about the stakeholder engagement piece. One of the things that we've used year after year in New York, and that I've been helping other communities to do as well, is hosting, like, so for example, if this is where your initiatives end, then I say, okay, just do the signage and go for it, right? But if this is the first piece of many other things you want to do together in the community and with partners, then I would say one of the things you can consider is something like a Fit City conference, right? So in New York, we've got these annual Fit City conferences that it was used initially to launch the built environment, healthy built environment work, right? To bring together all the different partners to be at the table. And those conferences are actually used for two things. One is to celebrate successes. So in this case, it could be a celebration of sort of part of a successful journey, right? And then in the following year, for example, or as part of your day, you could actually have a second piece that's talking about beyond this, what are next steps, right? It could be now all the playgrounds are open. That's like a celebration. A next step immediately could be how do we increase utilization, right? And what do all the partners who come to the table at this conference, like what role can they play in increasing utilization, right? And then, if the conference is successful, it's something that you can do year after year to actually keep the momentum going and building your initiative year after year and expanding it year after year. Just a thought.
Okay, technically we're over time, but I feel like there's really good comments, so if they're really short, can we get them from Ryan and Dan? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll make this short. So what I heard and think in terms of engagement and the partners is public health, right? So you have public health at the table, but what I haven't heard is specifically maternal and child health. And so if you look at MCHB or maternal and child health in every state, in every community, they are challenged to do the things that you are already talking about. And if you're looking at sustainability, they are funded to do some of these things too. So I would really look at MCHB and see how you can work. And I haven't heard anyone speak to children with special health care needs. And I think that's something that I would challenge all of us to think about. How do those children get what they need?
That's a great thought.
I just think it's a really simple, elegant approach. Appreciate that. And on the community engagement piece, I think on the school side, you have it right, principals are key, and it's important to incentivize principals who have many other priorities and pressures. On the community side, the more that you can engage existing leaders, both kind of with formal and more intangible authority to embrace this approach, I think is really important. And part of that is in some communities, often low-income communities, it's not just about the playground, it's a school. Schools are often seen as impenetrable and even intimidating. So there is some trust building beyond just kind of unlocking a gate. Finally, I just note from a personal perspective, I have a daughter in grade school, daughter in middle school. We go to the local elementary school to play. My middle schooler sits around board while my grade schooler plays on the stuff. So I think part of this also is if you're unlocking grade schools, what do you need to do to make them be used by kids of all ages?
Can we get a round of applause for our